Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with a replay from the Platinum League. We're going to be looking at a Zerg versus Protoss game today. The Zerg that we're going to be focusing on is Fallians over here on the right-hand side of the map, and his Protoss opponent for today is ThingULTRA, the Protoss on the left-hand side in blue here. Now, the three things that I'm going to focus on most during this game are, number one, creep spread and scouting. I'm kind of lumping them together a bit because creep spread, of course, is not only for your actual movement, but it gives you a great map awareness. So the more you can get it out there, particularly in a long game like this, which is going to be 27 minutes long, you can really get that over the entire map and actually be using it to scout what your enemy is doing. And also just other forms, more conventional forms of scouting, whether it's using your units or using your overlords, so that you can maintain vision on the map and be aware of what your opponent's doing. Second thing we're going to look at is the idea of transitioning. A lot of players make the mistake of making an attack, making a unit type, basically having a phase of their strategy that they're doing, and then they don't look to move to phase 2 or 3 until after they're done with phase 1. You need to be planning what phase 2 and 3 are going to be and getting them started so that you're actually moving easily from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 throughout the middle, the beginning, middle, and end game. And you've got smoother transitions from one to the other. And the third thing that we're going to look at in this game is the idea of decision making. Sometimes you're going to make a right decision, sometimes it's a wrong decision, but you're generally going to be better off if you're simply more decisive in general. If you choose a target, then don't be flipping around between different targets. Don't decide to go in and pull out and go in and pull out of an attack or an enemy's base. Don't start attacking one building and move to another, things like that. So being decisive and actually finishing things that you start, or deciding not to start them at all, is better than changing your mind halfway through in most cases. So those are the things that we're going to focus on mostly. This is a bit of a long game. I think it's probably the longest that I've done so far, but we'll see how that goes, or whether there'll be little lulls in things that I have to say. Pretty much, I want to say kind of normal things coming out of the Zerg, but I do feel that this expansion is actually a little late in going down. He does have the minerals that he could be expanding, and he hasn't really made any move to do that. Usually when you're delaying it this far, it's the result of making some sort of attack or something, but he's starting to even get a second queen out before really going for this expansion. It does feel a little bit late for me that he's not quite getting the production out. He's gone for a couple lings, but he's not really doing an early attack with it. It's very much in the middle of where I'd like it to be, and it's just not very, it's neither aggressive nor is it economic. So again, you kind of want to not play the middle ground as much when you're Zerg. Your opener, you tend to want to be, again, a little more directed or decisive than this. Now, he does obviously find this base and sees that the Protoss is, in fact, building down here, in addition to some of his buildings up top. That does indicate somewhat of a fast expansion, even though he didn't actually poke in to get to see this. But you can be pretty sure that he is planning to somewhat wall this off and secure this expansion pretty early. So again, we see a little bit of early poking just to see what sort of defenses are at this wall. This isn't the type of forge really fast expand that you see out of a lot of Protoss. Instead, he's got a few units up, but not very many, then getting that forge and just now getting a cannon. So this type of opening can in fact be vulnerable if the Zerg player had decided to do something aggressive. What we're going to see, however, is that the Zerg makes a kind of half-hearted attack into here when it could have been a little bit stronger. So he goes in with these first 7 units, with another little group trailing in, it would have been nice to have those maybe come in a little more together and get that damage done a bit quicker. He does manage to take out the majority of those units, but leaves one zealot with 8 hit points left. If he had not changed his mind and shot for the mineral line, he could have taken out that extra zealot, which is now regenerating shields and is really one of the best defenses he has against that Ling attack. This group of Lings out here was also kind of sitting there towards the end, and had it been able to charge in and catch the army away from the photon cannon, then he would have been able to finish off the zealot, finish off the sentry and stalker. But instead, by waiting, doing a run by here, making a small attack there, small attack here, just those little distractions, he doesn't end up doing a lot of damage in that mineral line. He probably could have gotten 2 or 3 probes had he not made a little detour here, a little detour here, a little detour here. It's just a couple seconds, but if you're choosing your path, just go directly to it and try not to let attacking this building, attacking a stalker, attacking that photon cannon slow you down at all. If he was more decisive, got a little more force out, got those little reinforcements up when the main army was attacking, it's possible that he could have ended it right there. If he was able to take down the extra sentry and stalker, it could have created a position where he could just continually send Lings in and there'd be nothing the Protoss could do about it. So look for those openings if your opponent gives them to you. But in either case, he knows he's at least secure. But we just see on home base that he's just now, after the failure of that attack, going into a Roach Warren. What you'd want to do, if he didn't have any intention of actually pressing the point on that, you'd want to see this transition happen a little sooner. You're going to have to tech up away from just the Lings in some way or the other. So while that attack was actually going on, this Roach Warren should have been going down so that when that attack had actually ended, now the Roaches are immediately able to come out, as opposed to this situation where he didn't want to make any more Lings because he doesn't want to use them, but he had to make more Lings in case this actually poked out against him because he didn't have the Roaches ready yet. Ideally, he would have just switched right into the Roach production and been completely secure against this type of force, especially since he saw that there were 7 gates. He's got to be aware that there could be an attack back on him, and he wanted to have those Lings ready, or not Lings, Roaches ready for a defense, along with the Lings that he had back at home. Good idea to go in and make sure that the third obviously does not get up, but again, a bit of indecisiveness in what he's attacking here. Had he just focused down that pylon, he actually could have got it before the 3 Zealots even warped in, but instead he switched to the Zealots warping in, was half split on this pylon, half on this nexus. Basically, this shouldn't be alive, and 3 units that came in to help chase him off never should have made it into the game. They should have had to have been warped in over here. He does get force fielded out, pretty good force fields by the Protoss player there, preventing the run by. That was a good idea, but good force fields did happen to take care of that for him. So that's just an example of decision making where sticking to one target, making sure that you focus something down, not changing your mind. It was left with 36 hit points. Another round of combat from the 6 or 7 Lings on it would have just taken those out. Those never would have come into play. Back home here, we can see that he's got a pretty decent Overlord spread. This is something that you do want to be doing. Get your Overlords out so that they can see things going on in the map. And his initial creep spread is actually pretty good. He's connecting these 3 bases together. At this point in the game, it could be a little further than this. Certainly could be probably out to about that Zelnaga tower if he was really hitting the creep spread as much as he could, but this isn't too bad at all. You've got the essentials of connecting these bases, but note that it's 13 minutes in the game, and we'll check back at this towards the end of the game and see that he really hasn't advanced at all from this point. You do definitely want creep spread over in this area, because it's going to give you vision on whether or not the army is swinging in to take your third, so you'll know how to react to that a little sooner. It's also going to give you vision of these two bases. So if you can get the creep spread this far, then you're going to know whether or not the Protoss player is attempting to take some sort of ninja base over here or not. You also want some of these overlords to be dropping their creep throughout the map, so that you can again accelerate that creep spread. If you've got them in front, then these creep tumors can go a lot faster and get out to their destinations. They can also obviously just help you with mobility in that area, and they can prevent certain buildings from going down. That's the one thing that a lot of Zerg players do neglect as one of the benefits when playing against Protoss. The farther away from your own base your creep spread is, the farther away his proxy pylon has to be when he comes in to attack you. If you've got creep to all the way out here on the map, then he's going to have to proxy right next to his own bases. He can't come down here and just put a proxy pylon right there next to your third if you've got creep that's covering the entire area. He has to take it out, wait for it to recede, and then drop a pylon, and he's just not going to have time to do that, or you're going to have time to react if you see him starting to knock out creep tumors. It won't be as surprising a push, and he won't be able to reinforce that push very well. So there's tons of reasons why creep is important, and I do stress that in all the Zerg games, and I'm probably talking about it too much, but those really are three key reasons to do it. Now, this engagement goes reasonably well, but it's largely working out solely because the Zerg is way, way, way bigger than what the Protoss army is. The unit composition is decent. Yeah, obviously, roaches generally are just the mainstay of what the Zerg is doing, but Hydralisks absolutely get melted by the Colossus fire, and he could have scouted around a little more despite having all these overlords in play, wherever they're at. He did have about 4 or 5 of these at one point. He's got 2 on the map. He's made about 4 or 5 in the game. He hasn't really looked around this base at all. He hasn't put any scouts in any position to actually see what could possibly be going on. Now, this attack, taking out the third, was certainly a good move. The idea, you always want to deny the Protoss' third. If they really get that up and running, you are in a lot of trouble, particularly if you're on 3 or 4 base at the time. But then following up with an attack up the ramp into a Colossus force that you now know exists without any air support or any counter to that Colossus doesn't make a lot of sense. That's really just kind of donating your army after you came up with a huge victory. The Protoss does delay it, but his instinct as soon as he had the minerals is, well, I just took out a huge army, I'm going to put that right back down, which is exactly what he should be doing. You know he's trying to get that up. It's much safer to go in, take it out, and pull back while you start to establish your gold base, while you start to establish other bases, and leave that threat out there on the map somewhere that the Protoss has to worry about coming back in and taking out this third. By allowing your army to be killed there, it's just, again, not a good decision. You want to hit and get out instead of actually making that engagement in a very disadvantageous position. Coming up a ramp against even one Colossus, let alone he should definitely have known that there would be more than one, is just not a great idea. Here we do have another force with very similar composition moving out. There's a lot of Hydras in this, and the engagement is very single-filey here as he tries to chase that back down. Again, when the Protoss decides to decline that fight and pull back into his own base where you're going to be put into a choke again, you have to just abandon that attack and go see what else you can do, unless you have an absolutely overwhelming force, which, while the Zerg force is bigger in this case, it's just not going to perform as well in this situation. The infestors just aren't really doing enough. They don't have neural parasite or anything like that, and you do get this cleaned up. He was able to take out a couple Colossus in the Gateway army, but that wasn't really a very good trade. It wasn't a cost-efficient trade, and again, it's completely allowed this third base to be set up when it could have just been repeatedly taken down by the exact same army. He didn't have to even lose the army before this, let alone lose that one. The Lings here are now, of course, going around scouting to see what other bases could possibly be taken. However, Overlords could be doing the same job. He initially got these Overlords out into the map, but you want to be sending this one over here and this one over here. You'd want an Overlord really at each location, as well as maybe a burrowed Zergling is always a good trick if you're going to invest in burrow. Just burrow a Zergling right underneath where they would put one of their bases, and then they'd have to send detection over to kill it in order to clean out that base, and you're going to know they put it down. During this time, obviously, the Protoss has got this completely up and running, and now it's fine. Now he's actually on 3 bases when he could have easily been completely starved out of the game quite a bit ago. He does have minerals left just due to not keeping these very saturated at all game. He's been really far behind in probes. So when the Lings finally do come in here, without the support of any army, they are just fairly easily cleaned up. He does get some probes, but the base is still alive, and this army is still alive. Back home, we were talking about transitions earlier. This is a very slow to transition thing. He went into the Hive Tech, and it took him a long time to get into the Greater Spire. I wasn't focusing there because there was a battle going on when this did happen, but he went from Spire directly into Greater Spire and directly from Corruptors into the Broodlords. Given that there were Colossus on the field anyway, it often makes some sense to get the Corruptors out, use them against that Colossus force to take them out initially, and then when you go and create your reinforcements and go in for the next attack, they're already there to be made into Broodlords. So you get kind of double use out of the unit that you have to make anyway. By going straight to Broodlords without actually getting use out of the Corruptors, it's almost as if you're paying more for them and getting less from them. Now he does obviously just kind of have a bit of an overwhelming force here, attacking again at a pretty bad angle. You can see that overall throughout the game, he's been a lot less efficient with his resources. There's a 3,000 resource difference in what the Zerg army has lost compared to what the Protoss army has lost, and that's really as a result of just making attacks from a really bad position, up ramps, allowing them to fight you in a choke and not getting a surround, attacking single file, things like that, and just not having the composition that is required to engage the type of army that you're actually facing. The Zerg, obviously, at this point, the Broodlords are going to be impossible to stop this far into the game. There's just not going to be enough Stalkers out. They don't have Blink. There's not enough Colossus out to really keep the ground clean, and just not enough gateway unit support to take those out. The economy from Zerg, obviously, at this point is almost unstoppable. He's going on to 6 bases now, and there's nothing, obviously, the Protoss player can do, but this could have been a lot cleaner game. Zerg required the much better economy to win this because he wasted a lot of resources. He lost a lot more resources in the early fights, and it was only because he had that better economy that he was able to keep going. You want to still try and be efficient. You're not always going to be totally efficient against the Protoss. So people do say they have one of the more cost-efficient armies out there, and that's certainly the case. But you can be a lot more efficient than 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 down in resources against them, and just do it by not fighting in that sort of place. So to recap this game overall, the creep and scouting are definitely main points. Get those overlords to every location, particularly once your strategy looks like this one, where you essentially have the Protoss contained and you just want to starve them to death. make sure that you cover every base and you know exactly when they're trying to put a base up so that you can just completely end it before they ever get that up. They're not a mobile force. They're not going to be able to come after you. And on that point of mobility, obviously having that creep out, by 27 minutes in the game, we can see that the creep is essentially where it was at 13 minutes in the game. He literally added one tumor. He put this one here from that one, and that's the only difference. Anything else was generated by the bases themselves. This creep could be everywhere. He could have creep literally to every one of these expansions, and you wouldn't even have to worry about positioning units everywhere. You'd have full vision of the entire map, and it would make these engagements completely destroyable instantly. He would have seen this attack coming into his gold base before it ever even really got beyond here. Before it ever left his own base, he would have seen it coming, could have surrounded it on creep, and that would have ended it before any damage was done at all. Number two, obviously the transitioning. You do want to make sure that you're teching up to things before you need them. So when you feel like you're about to enter the mid game or enter the late game, or you just need to switch from one technology to another, try and make sure you're doing that before you actually require the units and before your old plan of attack is actually over. If you're harassing him with lings and you plan to go into roaches, make sure that roach warren is building while you're harassing him with the lings. Don't wait until that is completely done, because then he can launch a counter-offensive against you while your technology isn't actually ready yet to hold that. So be doing that, and same with the Spire and Greater Spire. If you're going to go into Broodlords, and there's Colossus out in the field in particular, you're going to want to get the Corruptors out, get some use out of them as that's converting to a Greater Spire, and then convert them over. Then you're actually getting the double use out of the unit. Number three, obviously the decision making, where to engage, what to engage, and sticking on target, not pulling in and pulling back, not changing from one building to another, not changing from a building to a unit, from probes to a unit, leaving units to go after the probes, etc. Stick to what you're doing, and if something's close to death, finish it off and then move to the next thing. Don't be bouncing around from one place to the other. Those are overall the things that I look at here. In general, this is obviously a slightly higher level game than we tend to look at. Some of the normally symptomatic things that I point to, such as larva injects, were actually done pretty well in this game. There were obviously some lapses, but not enough to make it a major point or deciding factor in the game at all. And obviously the Zerg player did ultimately win here, but it could have been a lot cleaner and it could have been a lot quicker. So I hope this does help any of you Zerg players in particular on this one, but anybody out there. These are the types of things you should be looking for. Thanks for watching.